On today's show, we have Rug of fucking Rug. We're going to talk about NFTs, the metaverse, marketing in the crypto space, and the broader crypto market. Rug provides consultant service in the NFT industry and has released some NFTs. Rug, let's get started with some information about your background, please.
Yeah, I am a now middle-aged geek that has been into development and software architecture and growth engineering for the last few decades, really focusing on attribution technology and marketing technology over the last, I'd say, 5 years. That stagnated for me, not career-wise, just what I was doing-wise. And NFTs came around and they really played to a lot of the skills that I had built in these various industries. So I decided to jump in, quit my job, released a few projects, didn't necessarily have rampant success at first, but was able to ramp up to that. And they've had a few pretty successful projects that were the impetus behind our tech company, RUG.TECH, which serves to provide smart contracts, Web3, pretty much any kind of ancillary tech to anybody that's trying to get into NFTs, crypto, etc.
So I guess what was your first NFT and kind of why did you dive in?
My first NFT was a series of generative art that was art derived from the tweet data of Kanye West's tweets. I threw it through a couple algorithms I had that just kind of made weird art out of text. Took some image libraries that were based off of keywords in the tweets, had some colors that would go off of things. They were pretty neat. Flopped extraordinarily, but it was and we've since released an update to that actually did pretty well. I'll talk about it in a bit if we have a second. But that taught me a lot. That taught me a lot about the market, the memes, and most importantly, how to do pretty much everything end to end, from the generative technology to the minting to the websites, etc. So despite it's not hugely successful yet, as my first foray into the space, I'm pretty proud of it. I think it was pretty neat.
Typically you got to, what do they say, fail fast and then move forward, right? And obviously the crypto space is showing a lot of that. There's a lot of failure, a lot of projects that come onto the market, but ultimately we're learning a lot from it and finding out what does work. Maybe hit on what are you seeing that so far, based on your failures in the past, now is working?
Well, you went and tossed a plural on failures. I only named one. Damn, man.
Hey, look, if you're successful, you're going to have multiple, right?
And that's the key, isn't it? That's the key. The more successful you are, the more you failed. And I live by a simple adage that wisdom is knowledge applied. And you're not gaining that knowledge until you're catching your lumps, until you're failing, until you know what's wrong. Otherwise, then you're just falling a victim to Dunning-Kruger and convincing yourself that you're the smartest person in the room. For me, I know that very seldom am I even top 3 smartest people in the room. And that humility really keeps me moving forward for that thirst for knowledge, which hopefully eventually becomes wisdom.
There's obviously a lot of people in the crypto space that come in and, as you just mentioned, how to get in the room of the top 3 people, and everyone on boards is looking for that team or that community to join, where there's alpha that they could find that they may not be aware of. How do people go about that?
Well, a couple things on that. One, you never want to be the smartest person in the room. You're in the wrong room if you're the smartest person in the room. The second of all, with the alpha and the groups and things like that, any kind of signals or anything, it all depends on how close you are to the source of that. Because there's diminishing returns each step back in line that you go to. So it's not really finding the best source for it. It's being the quickest to act on the information that you have. And that's the quickest to be able to look at what you have, make an assessment of whether or not the risk outweighs the reward, and then moving forward based on your personal vectors. I think that's really the big differentiating factor in alpha, not necessarily the best source or trying to find the best source. It's developing the best gut and knowing how to act quick.
Got it. And so how about for those that are looking to get into NFTs, maybe what are the best channels for them to go to at this point?
I would say Twitter, by and large, is where you need to be. Telegram, if you're into that type of crowd. I'm from, I don't want to say old crypto, I'd say mid crypto. I came in 2015, 2016. And we all know the reputation that Telegram has, and it carries true. But Discord is popping, man. I've seen a lot of, someone said, I'm going to butcher this, but someone said that Twitter is the city and Discord is inside of the stores or something like that. And it's very much true. Like if you can get into some good Discord communities that are just signals communities, they're great. Discord is just a much better medium over Telegram, in my opinion. But Twitter and Discord for sure. Just then you find the good Discords on Twitter.
And so what inspired you to start your Twitter persona?
Okay, so I love buying domains. It's like one of my hobbies. And I bought RUG.WTF. I was like, this is a sick domain. Like it's a 6-letter domain. They're hard to find. I was like, okay, this is cool. I write copy too, just for the hell of it. And I wrote this site that is just like so insulting. It's just like in the inspiration. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dick's Last Resort, but it's a restaurant that cusses you out when you go there and they just call you an asshole. And I was like, you know what, I'd like to kind of do that. And it was a reactionary piece to the state of this avatar driven market where everybody's just buying these JPEGs. So I just came out and literally called people stupid motherfuckers in the top hero of the site and went on to sell out that project. Previously to that point, I was just Tom, like just a normal guy. And because my Discord name was rug.wtf, people started calling me Rug. I was like, okay, that's, I guess, cooler than Tom. Just about anything's cooler than Tom. They could have called me Mold and it would have been cooler than Tom. And Rug, obviously, .com, .eth, everything's available. And the brand is really hedged in vulgarity. So fucking Rug was the prefix that really put the icing on the cake. Or put the fucking icing on the cake.
So, I mean, where are you going, I guess, with the whole branding? Where are you trying to take that and kind of how you see that playing out?
I mean, obviously, louder and bigger. The plan right now is we're building a corporate structure around a lot of the different properties we have because we have a media arm. We do podcasts. We have one called Financial Advice, one called The Financial Advice, which is financial advice with accents. It's our overseas team. And we have a bunch of neat stuff. And that's all under an umbrella of a company called fucking Build. And underneath Build, we have RUG.TECH, Rug Marketing. We have our 14 NFT projects. And we have our media arm. We have our Rug Gives, which is our pretty much charitable operations company. It's responsible for over $400,000 of charity donations since June. And yeah, just a bunch of stuff. So pretty much going the conglomerate route and having a business that's hyper-focused on each aspect of what we're trying to provide to the market.
Why do you focus on or most attracted to NFTs versus maybe some of the DeFi or infrastructure plays out there?
I like them all. But I'm in the States and I have limited participation without being scared. That's really what it goes back on. We are working in broader incorporations so we can have a little bit more colorful palette of offerings. But as of right now, we're just staying the legal clear.
So for those that are looking to get into NFTs, right? I mean, it's kind of overwhelming for newer people coming. They might go to OpenSea and just by now we'll just see so many different types of NFTs. I mean, what are some tools that you're using to get started or kind of filter through the noise to find what's valuable and what's not?
The best thing you can do is find yourself a good Discord channel. A good Discord server is awesome because you're not only going to have a good channel that's dropping alpha, but you'll have a community of people that you can kind of vet these things off of. I would also say, depending on where you're at, like if you're entry level, then finding a newsletter, finding a Facebook group, finding a WhatsApp group, pretty much wherever you are comfortable, there's going to be conversation taking place around this. And that's where I would start because you're used to the pace of that conversation. For instance, like Facebook groups, the pace of that conversation is about the same. Anybody who's willing to go into NFTs with their full government name is about on the same keel of things. Then you graduate the NFT Twitter where you see the fucking rugs and the beanies and all of the pseudonymous names. Then you take the gloves off and start fighting a little bit.
How much should people trust what they hear on Twitter, though?
More than they should. A lot more than they should. I mean, I hate to throw my name out there in such negative light, but we hear rugs every day. Like there's people that like get burned every single day. And it's either because of bad actors or people that are trying to get people, for instance, like stealing people's seed phrases and grabbing their NFTs, or just people taking advantage of just the hype of the space. We saw something, it was last week, I believe. There was a token, it was an algo gated drop, which means they have a pre-qualifier for you to be able to claim this token. And I believe I think this one was the gas token. I don't want to say it was the wrong one, but it was one of the tokens that was dropped in the near time span. We had ENS, then we had SOS, then we had gas, and we had a bunch of different stuff that are all around the same time. And these are these algo gated launches. One of them, it was wild. They had all these tokens claimable, and it was the year. It was the year, your year in ETH or something like that. And it was like a Spotify wrapped, ETH wrapped is what it was. And it was like a Spotify wrapped when you went through. It was like, oh, you did this, and it was super cool. It was like you got this idea of like what your ETH wallet did, then you claimed these tokens at the end. Well, the smart contract developer took their ownership and they did something to the Solidity contract, which disabled people from selling on the Uniswap V3. And then they swapped something again to the V2, and I'm fucking this up really bad, but they rugged bad. And they only pulled like 31 ETH out of it. But the engineering that went into making something that would pass a litmus test when you first look at the contract, so you're just like, oh, this is just a renounce ownership, or this is just a simple conventional method. And seeing how clever they were in utilizing that to like rug people for what's 31 ETH? That's not even, it's nowhere near $1 million, obviously.
Yeah,
It's not much, but still, like when we're at that point in the market where people were seeing 31 ETH as a good enough gain to pull shit like that, it's scary.
Well, I guess there's a few things to unpack here. So obviously we're talking about security here and getting rugged. What are the few important steps that people need to take for security measures when they're buying and selling NFTs?
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, the first step is get a ledger, get a Trezor, get a hardware wallet, understand the difference between a hot wallet and a cold wallet, and understand that like don't just connect to every damn thing like it's your Google email address or something like that. Like this is like give it as your bank account. And every site that you connect to now has a peep into your bank account. I think people are like a little bit too flippant with their like, I'm just going to connect with MetaMask and go on with it, because that will get you one day. And that's what gets people onto Discord scams, where you'll get a support bot that hits you up and says, hey, like I can help you support, go to this site. And then they take like everything. And you hear every day, like people like, oh, please help me, MetaMask. And no, that's why we're here. Like there's no help. There's no managers. There's no one to kind of guide the way. And that's the sad reality of it. But that's also the allure, right?
So is there anything as the industry as a whole can kind of do to help onboard more users and not go through the same problems?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I wouldn't say so. It's really on the builders to have better interfaces to stop things like that from happening. Like MetaMask can put things in a way. But at the end of the day, that's the cost of admission. Like we're here because this is a trustless environment. We're here because there aren't custodians that are making decisions on your income. That's why we kind of reject the ideas of the Robinhoods and the custodial crypto wallets and things like that. It's on the same premise. So I think there is limited capacity. Like we could do better when we're onboarding people to educate them more. I think a lot of people onboard people just to get into commerce immediately. Like, hey, you're onboarded to go purchase and sell. You purchase and sell. So that pattern gets put into somebody's head of like, that's what they're doing. So a lot of these times people are getting scammed just based off of their knee-jerk programming. And I would say, yeah, like if you're onboarding somebody, take the 5 minutes to explain to them how dangerous things are. But I mean, you're not going to change how that works. This is how people have onboarded people into hype-based markets for millennia. So like we're really fighting against human instinct at this point.
All right. And so do you have any preferred blockchains that you're buying NFTs off of, or are you pretty agnostic?
I would say I'm ETH exclusive. Definitely jump onto some L2s and side chains, but mostly 99% it's going to be ETH and Polygon. Polygon for anything that's super transaction heavy, although we have seen some network lag because of a play to earn game that was deployed on there. So definitely considering like Arbitrum, Immutable X, anything like that as alternatives, just in case that becomes more of a prevalent issue. So always ready to make a pivot, but typically staying within the EVM.
You say EVM and then also Solana. Do you think there's anything from a valuation standpoint or how well an NFT's value will hold up over a long term based on what blockchain it's originated on?
Well, yeah, I would say so, because if you have a blockchain that doesn't have enough nodes, or a blockchain that just doesn't look like it's going to exactly be permanent, then yeah, I would say that 100% is a influencer on the potential longevity of an NFT. I think that the reason people gravitate towards ETH because of the likelihood of ETH just going off into the ether is very, very unlikely. Whereas like with Tezos or Solana or things like that, like we have like low nodes, low sample size. So it's a little bit more risky. That's why I kind of stay away from those things. And Solana specifically is just like XRP for NFTs. So that's,
That's good. That's good. So what are some of the features that you look at when buying an NFT that ultimately is going to help retain the value? Maybe add to that. Do you think utility of NFTs is more important in the long run?
that's where I'm at. I'm not going out to buy things to say the flip. And that might be like, I'm not saying that's the best advice ever. There's a lot of people who are making a killing flipping. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
But I'm investing when I buy into stuff. It's because it has cool tech and cool utility. And I think utility, you have like static NFTs, which are just a picture, and the utility really is like the avatar or something like that. You have access driven NFTs, which are NFTs that get you into places. So that's like Gary Vee's V Friends or his new restaurant NFT, or any of these NFTs that just get you into like a Discord server or something like that. And then you have utility based NFTs that do things. The actual NFT does something. So that's like our worldwide Web3, our sandbox parcels, so on and so forth. Those things do things. I really fall into being enamored with things that do things. So all of my NFTs, all of our projects do things. We've kind of pioneered this concept of what we call quantum metadata. And that's an NFT that the user is able to manipulate on their own to express themselves through said manipulation. So for me, that's so much more interesting. Like we have Chip Dip, which is just an experimental tech piece that they're cross-chain NFT albums that are within NFTs. So they can display Solana, Tezos, and Ethereum NFTs within a Polygon NFT on OpenSea. So it's like meta. It's like really in and of itself. But that's what I like. I like making tech that does stuff, despite like really what the market sentiment is on that, because I'm not really building for flippers.
I guess ultimately, what do you think is the highest and best utility out of all these in the future? And where do you see this going?
That's a good question. I think if anybody really nails that, they're on it. But I think that everyone's definition of utility is going to be different. Even like people will argue that access is utility, and I think that's true. And people will also argue that avatar is a utility. The ability to be able to use it as a profile picture is a utility in and of itself. And if you look up the definition of utility, 100% that's true. So if we're going by the definition of utility, I would say avatar will always be the utility that trumps all. That is your free advertisement. That's what's getting people awareness about your aesthetic. So avatar is always going to be like, if we're considering that a utility, if we're considering that a thing that the thing does, then yes, I would say that's the biggest one there. But it's never off of your personal opinion. Like there's so many things that are just horrendous and garish that are just pumping right now because they're centered around a meme. Like you have to understand like the nuance behind it. So
Do you think we'll still be using the word NFT in a few years, or do you think that will be played out and maybe it'll be diversified in something else?
we still say token, right?
Yeah, I guess right now it's almost like the past. You put the word NFT on it, no matter what it is, and automatically it's supposed to have more value, right?
Yeah, I mean that's like anything though. That's a hype based market. As soon as you start verbing something like, "Can I NFT this? Can I NFT this?" You've hit a point of normie saturation. Like we saw that with ICOs. Like, should I blockchain this? Should I blockchain that? I fell victim. I blockchain the fucking microwave, I think, at one point. But yeah, like it's when you verb something, and every industry sees it when they hit a hype bubble.
So most people you go and talk to outside of obviously crypto or NFTs, they're kind of lost in the whole thing. And you kind of mentioned metaverse, and they're like, what does this even look like? Can you kind of break that down for us?
A metaverse is a virtual gathering place. It's anything. It's a comment section of a Facebook post. Like that's a metaverse. Like if you're immersive in that virtual environment, that's a metaverse. Like it's this whole like, what is a metaverse? Let's tie this down to like a definition is stupid. Like it's just a place online. That's it. Like we've been in metaverses for years. Like freaking Yahoo Messenger chat. That was a weird metaverse.
So how will the NFTs ultimately play out in the metaverse, or how will they be used there?
That's where it gets cool, because that's when we really start understanding this idea of provenance and like digital asset ownership. because the normies, like the right click savers, like, why can't I just right click save that? The more places that we have to display things that only let you display them, the more that concept of like, oh shit, like you own that NFT really carries through. So as we see like virtual spaces, there's ISO something, I forget what it is. I don't want to bastardize it, but it's a really cool, just little tiny metaverse that you could display your NFTs on your walls. Love it. Like it's really cool. Worldwide Web3. It's badass. Like it's like NFT driven. You can have your NFTs as the sprites inside of the damn game. So that's where things start getting cool. And like that's where the metaverse starts getting cool, is when these avatars, these things that you're buying, either can be suited up in a virtual space or displayed in a virtual space. That's where we start winning. Like that's where the right click savers start going back underneath their holes and looking for the next trend to kind of be curmudgeons about.
How do you see like the everyday business website and being able to display things, within the metaverse, that transition and people start replacing their existing websites to this new type of metaverse where people can, I guess, enter in and have a different type of experience?
I think it's already here. We have like On Cyber, which is killing it. Like they just did the artifact pods, which are just these sweet little personal metaverse. They're like rooms. And I'm really enamored with that specific concept of not like this just big sprawling space, but like a little room that you can have that's connected to other rooms. I think that's really cool. But on conversely, I think like big sprawling spaces. I think No Man's Sky, it's a video game. It's like a generative universe, and like each planet is different. It's fascinating to me. Like, and now that we're seeing that, and like we're seeing like that play out in like NFT worlds, and it's really neat. Yeah, I probably ignored your question. So, but I think we got somewhere, right?
No, I mean, we hit on some. I mean, I'm just looking at how fast will, I guess, kind of this transition happen. How fast are people going to be replacing their existing websites with this different type of experience, we'll call it? Maybe it's where it's more like interactive. Like you said, people could enter different rooms, get all the company's information, or maybe try on different clothes or whatever that may be.
Token gating is going to be a big thing until people come in and realize that like that really inspires way too much classism. Token gating is an awesome, like for me right now at this point in the market, I love it to be able to whitelist people and to be able to offer exclusive content to owners of certain things. But we're seeing like certain collections, Bored Apes, for example, get whitelists for almost everything, almost every project that comes out. So what happens is that gives anybody who owns a Bored Ape the opportunity to go mint that project first. And if they mint out, they can set the price right. And then that's always going to be a situation where Bored Apes, for example, and I don't want to single them out because it happens to a lot of projects. Doodles, it happens to as well, where they'll get whitelisted. And it seems great. It seems really great. Like we want to attract these people who obviously have money in their wallets. It's like as a marketer, like I understand targeting, I understand bucketing and affinity categories and ICPs and so on and so forth. So I get it. But I also know that like if I run a Facebook ad, it's very specific on what I can target into to avoid being prejudiced against disenfranchised groups, to avoid being prejudiced against lower earners or things like that. With Web3, as great as it is, like we're very, very quickly seeing programmatic classism, and nobody's calling it out yet because like we're all making money. But a couple years down the road, when we've realized the system that we've built that is based on like what you have in your wallet, it's a little bit scary. Like it's a little bit scary. So you better have something in your wallet.
So, I mean, that kind of brings up a little bit of discussion on like, fair launches. I think that's kind of been a little bit of talk over the last year, even through DeFi, a little bit of everything. I mean, how do you ultimately, if someone's going to launch a new NFT set and there's global interest and there's only a set number, how can it actually ever be fair?
There's a gentleman actually I'm getting ready to interview on my podcast in a half hour from now. His name is Ab. If you go to his Twitter, ABWAGMI, we're all going to make it. AB, we're all going to make it.
Yep.
He does amazing generative art. So he'll do like flow fields. He's working on like an actual like containerized metaverse experience right now. But his thing, he calls himself a unique wallet maxi, where he's trying to have the most unique wallets per collection that he has. The one that just went out recently, Blueprints, has, I think, 0.91 unique wallets. So that's like pretty much every single one, like is a unique wallet. And the way he did that was a very super immersive Discord strategy where he has like one channel, you go in, you have to pay attention to a bot that pops up into the channel. When that bot pops up in the channel, you have a limited time, 5 minutes, to answer a series of questions about app. So you have to go through the internet, and like I failed. And I interviewed this dude and I got a 5 and I was pissed, man. And like only 9s and 10s, are like the top 2 tiers were able to get in and mint, and they only were able to mint one at a time. And then he went through and did an extra layer of due diligence to make sure that there was like no duplicate entries and things like that. And it turned out like at mint, like when he minted everything out, it was like 1,400 pieces in the collection, like 1,398 unique wallet holders, and it's beautiful. Like it's an awesome thing. So fair mints are possible. They're just not incentivized. It takes too much time. When you know, if you just throw a little bit of hype on it, like you're going to have 2,000 dipshits that come in and mint your thing out. So they're like, it's not incentivized.
So what he basically did was he filtered down to the truest fans and would know the information about him, and then gave them access in answering those questions.
Yeah, and there's no gas war. They was completely whitelisted by your ENS. So like if I got in, fucking RUG.ETH was just on the whitelist. I could go in at any time during the day. There's no rush to get in unless you're trying to get a lower token number. But he was also very careful to distribute his traits in a very fair way. Took a lot of time into the data science of the trait distribution. And yeah, it was a great drop. And that's what I'd like to see. But the incentive just isn't there. Like if people are buying with absolutely low effort, then why wouldn't you just do the bare minimum, whitelist some Bored Apes, and then call it a day?
Well, I guess over time, I would think that would actually kind of maybe rise to the top, because people realize that a lot of projects fail, and the ones that will do the best will probably be the most engaged fans that stick around, and not the flippers, right?
Yeah, you hope, and the flippers never really stay around. And sometimes what's difficult is getting that ratio down. Like if you come into something and it's just all hype and it mints out in seconds, then you're going to have a lot of people that are really just concerned about price action and making a flip. I try to avoid that as much as I can. Like I like the most slow and steady as you can. And that's really where I'm at, because I've seen both sides of the fence. Our rug project minted out like in a couple hours. We've had like Blaze Cats mint out very quickly. And I would say that the groups that we have, like where we like, I think they're all great communities, but the groups that we had to wait longer to kind of get to the core community that's really there for the cause and there for the art, the tech, and the lore took a lot longer on things that were hype based.
Let's hit on a little bit, what does that whole process look like to launch an NFT for those that may be thinking about doing that at some point in the future here?
Well, the initial steps, like you really got to figure out why you're launching that NFT. Like, that's a layered question, because a lot of people are going to say like, I want to make a bunch of money, and that's fine. Like that's fine, but like that's a very broad net that you're casting there. You have to figure out like how you're going to make that money. Who are you trying to really impact? Like what's your ideal customer? And developing those personas for me is very important. Understanding who you're marketing to before you market to them is the biggest marketing lesson that you can learn. And it seems obvious, but it's not. Like it's not. It's like knowing UX, it's knowing the market, it's knowing the memes, it's knowing the nuance. That's important. So before you do anything, knowing that person, and then getting an idea of aesthetic. Like what is your offering? Is it going to be like a beautiful generative series of just abstract art? Is it going to be adjective animal collection, or so on and so forth? That's up to you. And that's really based off of your ideal customer. And then from there, you've got to get yourself a smart contract developer that you can trust, because the last thing that you want to do is go upload 10,000 things onto OpenSea and think that that's going to be a valuable expenditure of your time. Like you want to get a smart contract developer. It's not going to beat you over the head, but you also need to understand that you are at their mercy. So when you're coming in, you're not just hiring somebody to write code, you're hiring somebody to manage that smart contract for you. So when your developer comes in and says like, hey, I'd like 20 to 50% of your take, understand that you probably wouldn't have 10% of your take had not been for the developer that's getting you the smart contract. So be prepared to be in somewhat of a partnership, or at least a profit sharing with that developer, unless they're willing to give you a flat cost, which at this point, Solidity development, if it's good, it's expensive. And that's going to be pricey too. So get your money up, get your cake up, get your concepts up, understand who you're marketing to, and everything else should follow suit. Just make sure that you're surrounding yourself with good tech, or you're gonna surround yourself with bad tech.
Is that something you guys offer internally as a service to outside parties, or?
Yeah, from top to bottom, we do anything NFT related that you could think of. So from smart contracts to Web3, we'll design the websites. We have an entire art department that can get any concept that you want through a generative thing. So if you want 10,000 hungry hippos, like our art department can get that together for you. But that's really where it is. The more members of our 14 plus member team that we activate, the more of your take that we're going to deactivate from your earnings. So we do come in and we do take out of that proportion. Like we normally don't go with a flat rate pay because we do offer continued support. We don't just touch and go, here's your contract, here's your site. We're typically going to be there longer than you are and putting in more hours than you to make sure that your launches go smoothly.
I guess kind of what are the expectations from like the marketing side? What all goes into properly getting a launch done? Obviously, I guess it kind of depends on a person's influence or size of their network, but I'm sure there's some customers that may not have a very large network, but they want to kind of reach the masses.
Yeah, we don't touch into marketing for those folks much at all. We initially did do marketing, but we realized really quickly that people, when they hire marketing in this industry, they want one thing. They want two things. They want you to mint them out, which means they want all their NFTs sold, and they want their floor as high as possible. Like they don't care about anything else. Like that's what they're hiring you for. So both of those are impossible to do unless you are padding the pockets of influencers or just really, really hyping up your product more than it should be. It's impossible to guarantee a mint out just as much as it's impossible to guarantee a floor rise. And I think that that's really why we do not touch marketing for NFT projects specifically. When we do marketing for platforms. We do marketing for service providers. That's really the end of the industry that we market on. We build tech for NFTs. We build tech for token launches. We build tech for anything blockchain related. But as far as marketing goes, like we are very, very particular about who we bring on with that because it's typically just people that are hiring us they think it's just a print money factory.
So how does one determine like the mint price and what is kind of the average in the market? What are some insights there?
Mint price it's a sliding scale. Like a lot of people, if you're confident enough, make it a free mint. Make it free mint plus gas, and then you're making all your money on secondary sales. I see that as a strategy that works out pretty well because then at that point you're absolving a lot of the responsibility there. Like you haven't charged somebody this exorbitant price. Like there's no real like, hey, the floor is below mint, guys. Like, well, no, the mint was zero. Fuck you. That's really where it is. But like, it's really knowing your market because like there's drops that are dropping every day that are 0.1 ETH, which is a lot of money. It's like $300 or wait, it's like $320 and plus gas, and gas is just stupid. So you're paying like $500-600 to get any of these. And I think that's cool. Like but that's risky for me. Like I always price low. Like I think that's the move is to keep it affordable. And if you believe in your product, you're believing the secondaries are going to kind of match that. But then that's another thing. Like it's time scales. Like people with NFTs are like here for like, all right, let's sell right now. Let's go right now. Like I come from tech, man. Like I come from tech where we're on 2-year development cycles on feature sets. So like it's and that's with a lot of work getting done. That's output every day, and you're still 2 years between green light and release on a feature set. So we fight that by like rapidly releasing stuff, and we're pretty agile with it. But yeah, man, like it's rough all around, I'd say.
So you mentioned like minting at zero kind of has a less expectation from the buyer, but I guess when it trades on the secondary market, I would think that someone who's paying a lot more for it will also have some type of expectation from the group or the person that is behind the project because they paid a higher price, right?
I think that they're going to have those expectations regardless.
Yes.
And they're going to get real. Can I speak with your manager real quick as soon as their bags start getting heavy? And that's the scary truth of it. Like no matter how good you're doing and how much you're developing for a project, at the end of the day, like you are going to get abused by people who don't think that you're moving quick enough, no matter how quick you move. So
now you mentioned a portion of the secondary sales going back to the project. Can you explain that more? And typically, what is the percent that people see?
Well, so we have like OpenSea. You could take up to 10% royalties on any of your sales. So it's not the feature built into ETH. A lot of people think that that's like built into NFTs. Like it's this royalty thing that goes on for forever. It's built into the platform. If the platform doesn't honor that, then you're shit out of luck when it comes to trading hands. That's why you'll see a lot of people upset about like off site trades and things like that because it cuts out the royalties. But the royalties, you could set them up on most any of the platforms. Some of the platforms will allow you to do split royalties, which you could split it among multiple creators. That's not typical. You'll see that on more Polygon platforms just because of the gas it takes to send out multiple payments because you're hitting a smart contract with that. But yeah, that's one of the lure of NFTs is the fact that you could charge that royalty in perpetuity as long as it's getting traded on platforms that honor it. You're making income, and that's where a lot of it comes home for people, like because that's what you rely on for your operational budget. Just to give you an idea, like secondary royalties are huge. We have a project called Blaze Cats where 100% of secondary royalties goes to charity, mental health of America specifically, and we've done over $300,000 in secondary royalties that we've been able to donate to that charity. So it's badass. Like it keeps people in the space and it keeps it viable so you can keep working on what you're doing.
Any reason why that we'll call it royalty like can't be programmed into the smart contract outside of trading through the OpenSea platform?
Well, when you're minting, it is. When you're minting, like that's like you can program that out. So every time you hit the wallet distro function, it's gonna send a bunch of different people in that. Can it be when OpenSea is selling something? For example, when they sell an NFT, they're just selling it from one person to another person. The smart contract that created the NFT, the only thing that's really happening is like you're hitting a function in there, like the transfer function or something like that, that both users like have accepted permissions for.
So there's no way, like I guess from a technical standpoint at this point, to maybe program the NFT that if it transfers wallet to wallet, a certain something fee has to be paid back.
No, but there is an Ethereum improvement proposal that's out right now to standardize the royalty process on an Ethereum level.
Got it.
And I think it has some legs too. And that's really what we would be looking at. Like
Okay.
it would be pretty difficult to do that on a solidity level because we'd also have to have the platforms hit different methods. So that's going to be a level of like onboarding the platforms to accept like a way our NFTs do things. And that's unlikely.
Got it. And I think the second thing you unpack there is that you mentioned, doing transfers outside of OpenSea to prevent paying that fee. Now, through Twitter, I've observed a lot of times where people have had a problem or gotten their NFT stolen is because they tried to bypass that and go to another party, and it's a high risk. Is that correct to assume there?
Yeah, I would say that some of them do. Some of them are trying to go around that fee and not pay that like 10% fee back to the creator, just trying to get that 10% back for themselves. We do see some people get scammed there. Mostly it's just people being stupid. It's always based off of like either greed or just stupidity. Mostly greed. So it's like all these bots that get people. Some of them will play on like people needing help. Like I remember a scam going around. It was like, hey, and they would pose as a friend of yours and they'd be like, hey, I really need 2 ETH. Can you send me 2 ETH? And like they would like send them 2 ETH. Like I don't have any friends that would send me 2 ETH, by the way. Like that would be badass if I had any friend that was just like, hey, here's 7 grand, just chill. But like for right now, it's based on greed. It's like, hey, oh my God, have you seen this CryptoPunk is on sale right now for 3 ETH. Oh my God, go look at it. And you go to it and it's a site that just like takes your seed phrase, or you'll get an email from a OpenSea fake site that's like, hey, your ape has sold. And you go to it, you click the thing, and like you go to connect to the OpenSea. It's like, yeah, well, it's sold now, motherfucker. Yeah, I would say they're always pinging on greed or just like people being nice. But I think that you're getting more hits when you play into the greed.
All right, cool. Let's hit on a little bit of the market, right? Where it's kind of been the last 6 months, maybe where it's going next year or two. It seems, a bit overbought, saturated. What do you think's happening and where do you think it's going?
Market's wild, man. Like the market is wild. I was just looking at this last night. It was on Google Trends. I use that just a lot more, mostly anecdotally, but it's neat to look at stuff. If you look at NFTs, and if you've been in NFTs all this year, you would have thought that March through June bubble, like the first Beeple bubble, where he like sold the piece for 69 million, eclipsed where we're at right now. You would think that we're still waiting to get back to that point. But how diminutive that March through June looks on a trends map for NFTs now is just mind blowing. So it's hard to really understand where you're at, just as much as it's hard being on Earth saying like, this is where I'm at in the universe. And I think that's kind of where we're at. I don't know where things are going. Like I don't know where the market's going. I don't, and like, I guess the easiest way to summarize that is I get really upset, not upset, like I'm not like crying about it, but I get annoyed when I see people say like, we are so early in this process. Like, no, you don't fucking know that. Like you do not know where we're at on a time scale unless you know the beginning and end. Like otherwise, like we are arbitrarily just drifting, my dude. That phrase bugs me. So like you don't like until NFTs end, we don't know if we're early. We might be really fucking late.
Yeah, I agree. We definitely never know where we're at. Regulations, right? The way some of these offerings are occurring, they could be ruled as securities. Kind of what's your take, or maybe how should people be aware of what to look for and maybe not participate in?
Well, the Howey test is the way to go. I mean, the Howey test is just a couple questions that you can ask yourself about any asset to determine whether or not it's a security. That's a good litmus test. That's what the government that's making the rules is using. So check out the Howey test. That's step one. For the creators, be careful, man. Like securities laws are some of the only laws in the United States that have no statute of limitations. So you might think that you're good for your risk protocol play to earn game that you put out that everybody loved and everything was good. But in 40 years, when the government finally figures out what the fuck it was that you did in 2021, you might go to jail. So for me, like I'm super careful. Like if we release a coin, like we are so careful to say like there's no value back behind this. There's no liquidity pool. This just bleeds utility. That's all this is. I don't do sales. I don't do like for tokens and stuff like that. But it's so hard, man, because there's no clear legalese written about anything that we're going on right now. We have to make like assumptions based on like archaic laws, and archaic could even be 5 years old laws that are just not applicable to digital asset ownership in this system that we're in. NFTs, to be honest with you, and you know this just from being in crypto, they don't pass the Howey test. Like NFTs, depending on how they're marketed, and most of them are marketed like, hey, buy this, make more money later, failed.
Yeah.
That's a promise of future value. That's like the biggest way to fail an asset on a Howey test. So I don't know. I think that we're all in weird territory. And like, if we know any precedents from the government at all, like they will come in and fuck shit up after a certain period of time. It's just, it takes them a while to understand what's going on, but they're pragmatic. Like, don't think lack of response indicates no response is coming.
I agree there. I agree. It's all going to come, and hopefully it comes sooner for everybody. All right, let's just hit the last question here. And that's, what is the biggest thing you have implemented in your life that's helped increase your net worth?
Just staying true, just making sure my integrity is always in check, like never going to the new shiny things and never really deviating from the path. Like when you have conviction, you really could go the distance with it, but you get tested all the time. Like you always have people that will come in and say like, you're not going to make it. Like you suck. Like you shouldn't be doing this. And like, that's like, I always say like, you'll get those all the way up to the point of breaking through. And then when you break through, you get those so much more, but you just got to keep going. Like you have to have that perseverance and conviction. Like those are the two things that will take you further in life than anything else. Because if you don't have conviction, you're not going to be able to see the course. You're not going to be able to keep going on your morals. You're going to jump onto the new shiny things and you're going to get wrecked. So perseverance and conviction take you a long way.
I agree and appreciate that. And what is the best way for everybody who would like to get a hold of you or just hit you on Twitter or whatever?
I am at fucking rug on Twitter, and I'm not cussing at you. That is my tweet handle. It is FUCKINGRUG. I am also fucking rug.eth. I'm not cussing at you there as well. It is FUCKINGRUG.eth. And I'm saying this pedantically because people send ETH to rug.eth thinking that I'm just swearing at them. I'm not. My website is fuckingrug.com. I'm not swearing at you. It's FUCKINGRUG.com. And my email is rug@rug.tech. My company is rug.tech. It's owned by fucking Build, which is just a parent company that owns all of the other stuff. And we are live daily in hub.rug.wtf for our podcast as well. We hope to have you on soon too.
Rug, I appreciate coming on.
Hell yeah.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching my latest interview. If you like what you saw, please click the subscribe button below to become a member of the Joe Robert community. Be sure to hit the bell to turn on all notifications so you always know when I post a new video. Tell me what you thought about the content in the comments below. I always read them and would love to answer any of your questions.